Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome if you're new. I hope you're all doing well and welcome back to another video. Today's video we're going to be wrapping up all the books I read in the month of February of 2023. This is my first wrap up of the year because in January I didn't really read anything as such. I think I read like 2 books, so if you want to see what I read you can go to my Instagram because I did a whole reel of all the books I've read so far this year. It's always linked down below. But I wanted to sit down and properly discuss all the books I read in February as well as all the stats. If you didn't know, I am well and truly way under the way with reading this year and I'm so happy that my reading groove is back. So I'm really excited to sit down today and discuss all the books I read with you. And March is also going off to a swelling start. Swelling? My vocab today is very strange. So yeah, without further ado, let's hop into it. I read a total of 5 books in the month of February, spanning across 1,999 pages. Didn't quite make the 2,000 mark. I rated 1 5-star, 2 4-star, and 2 3-stars. 2 of them were audiobooks, 1 was an ebook, and 2 were physical. I managed to get 2 off my physical TBR. I took 1 out from the library and I read 1 via Scribd. I read 1 non-fiction, 3 contemporary, and 1 mystery. That ratioed out to 3 YA and 2 adult. So those books were I'm Glad My Mum Died by Jeanette McCurdy, Influential by Amira Sage, The King is Dead by Benjamin Dean, Grownups by Marion Keyes, and Listen Lion by Brandy Colbert. The first book I finished in February was I'm Glad My Mum Died by Jeanette McCurdy. This was the first audiobook I read and finished in the month of February. I listened to it on my commute to work, which has really helped me read more these days because I do have a longer commute to work, so listening to audiobooks is really upping my book count for the month, so I'm very, very grateful for that. And I really, really enjoyed this book. As a disclaimer, I don't usually rate non-fiction and memoirs, but for some reason, I just could not give this book 5 stars. Obviously it is a true event, so it's weird to rate on someone's personal experiences, but the way this book was told and was written and the subjects it addressed, I just felt like it deserved a 5-star rating on Goodreads so more people could read about it. Obviously, if they can deal with the trigger warnings, because the content warnings are very severe in this book. If you didn't know, I feel like you do though, because this book is very, very well hyped and well loved on the book community. But this book follows Jeanette McCurdy's life and it accounts her as her mother forces her into the acting industry from a very, very young age, and that kind of consequences into Jeanette dealing with a lot of mental health issues such as OCD and bulimia and disordered eating. This is because her mum wanted to become an actor, so she forced that on Jeanette from a very, very young age, and it's Jeanette via the audiobook, which she does narrate herself, accounts from when she first got into acting and then trying to please her mum, and then obviously when her mum passed away, her trying to finally kind of escape from her mum's hold. And this book was just captivating. I kind of loved it is not the right terminology because this book is very triggering and is very like heart-wrenching to read / listen to, but the way she accounts it, it was very, very captivating, and I think everyone should read it if they can deal with the trigger warnings because it showcases and limelights the acting industry in a way that it kind of hasn't been, because I feel like it's a very romanticized industry, and it makes me want to read Matthew Perry's memoir even more now because I am a massive Friends fan and obviously he is an actor, so although he was an older actor when he broke into the limelight, it still gave him a lot of mental health issues and struggles in his later life. So I think the acting industry is very romanticized and it's a very tricky industry, and Jeanette McCurdy does an incredible job in shining the light on the negative side effects to acting, and I just really, really enjoyed this book, so I gave it 5 stars. The next book I finished, and I say finished because I started it in January but I read the majority in February, so I'm counting it as part of my February wrap-up, was Influential by Amira Sage. This was my library loan for the month and I read it as an ebook on my phone. This is a YA book that follows our main character Almond, whose mum has always been in the limelight. She is a YouTuber whose platform kind of grew as soon as Almond was born, as she told people her story of motherhood and kind of the challenges that she faced as a mother, mothering Almond and growing up with her. So she's always been in the limelight and everyone's always known her every little bit, like when she first walked and kind of nappy changes and all this sort of stuff. And Almond is finally coming to the age where she can terminate her contract to become like an influencer, and she doesn't want to be this influencer. This is what her mum's dream. She didn't want to be this. So it's a massive dialogue on not forcing children, but children who have no say in being on their parents' channels, which is very prominent for today's society. There's a lot of young kids on YouTube who haven't been able to consent to their parents filming them yet. So I just wanted to read this book because of that sort of dialogue, and although it didn't focus on it too much in that sense, it definitely got inside Almond's mind in why and how she feels like this, and how it's her right to want to be in videos, and that it's her choice whether she wants to be in them or not. And as she turns that age where she's allowed to decide, it's her coming to terms with the fact that she's going to have to ruin this relationship with her mum to get what she wants. And I thought it was a really well told YA story. It did kind of have a slower start, which is why it took me quite a long time to read, but by the end I really felt for the characters. I really enjoyed Almond's relationships with her friends and the discussions it had on social media. I gave this book a 4-star in the end. The next book I read in February was The King is Dead by Benjamin Dean. This was my other audiobook I listened to on my commute to and from work. Not gonna lie, I was hesitant about reading and picking up this book because I love Benjamin Dean. If you've been following my channel for a while, I love his contemporary middle grades. The fact that he branched out into YA mystery, and obviously mystery not being my prominent genre that I tend to dip my toe in, I was hesitant to read it. But I thought, what's the worst that can happen? I'm listening into it on my commute, so I'm not losing out on reading time at home, reading it physically. Let's just give it a go. And I was intrigued from the minute the audiobook started. This book basically follows our main character James, whose father has just died. His father is the king, and he is next in throne. He has a twin brother who was born 60 seconds after him, so James is legally the next in throne, the next to reign, and he's going to be the first black king. So it's all about racism in royalty, which I think Benjamin Dean did a really, really good job at. Something that I've never read about before, so was constantly intrigued. Obviously this book, because of that, discusses a lot of racism and it has a lot of racial slurs. And so the premise is basically James becoming the king and getting a lot of blackmail and racial abuse because he is the first black king. But not only is he the first black king, he's also holding a massive secret, and in true Benjamin Dean style, James is gay, and he's trying to hold that because he thinks that's going to be throw the public over the edge. They can't have a black and gay king. But then James starts getting blackmailed, and there's this mystery of who is holding a grudge against him, who wants him dead. And you kind of follow that storyline, and I really, really enjoyed it. It was a good mystery. I was intrigued throughout. The audiobook was really well written, and I was listening to it when I was house cleaning on Saturday to finish it off, and I just was like, oh my god, what the hell's happening? I couldn't stop listening to it. I was intrigued, and the only kind of negative side to that is that I felt like the ending was wrapped up really, really quickly for a mystery that took you an entire book to try and figure out. It felt very, very rushed near the end. But other than that, really, really enjoyed it, and I gave it a 4 stars. The next book I read was Grownups by Marion Keyes, which I'm so happy to finally have off my physical TBR. It was a over 600 page contemporary book following 6 close-knit group of people, 3 brothers who all married 3 very different women, and they are quite close-knit and they all spend a lot of time together. And you start off the book at a dinner party with all 6 of them, and some drama ensues, and you don't really know where this drama has come from, and then you flash back to why the drama has happened in the first place. There's a lot of relationships, there's a lot of characters, there's a lot of connections, and yes, I was intrigued for a lot of it. But I think I'm going to have to say and wave goodbye to Marion Keyes, because every single time I read one of her books, the criticism that I always give is her books are just too long. You guys know me, I am a reader who loves a lot of character-driven stories, barely any plot is absolutely fine by me, but this just felt, I don't know, I didn't love this book. I thought it was going to be a 2 stars. I put it through Corpal and it just managed to reach over to the 3-star kind of borderline. It's a very slow read that felt like it could have been cut in half, because Marion Keyes could have cut out half of the words in that book and still got across the same story. One thing I do love about Marion Keyes' writing is that she follows each individual character separately, so each chapter was following a different character and you got to know them really, really well, which tends to be why her books are always absolutely massive for a contemporary. But I just didn't have that connection to any of the characters this time around, so therefore it felt like quite a drag. But the trigger warnings in this book are bulimia and disordered eating, as well as some HP references if you get affected by those. Even though this book was written in 2020, I do not agree with books still having those sorts of references in them. There's no need. So that's my stand on that one. It just reached a 3 stars. But it's in the unhaul pile. I will not be reaching for it again. I don't think I'll be reaching for Marion Keyes again anytime soon either, because she just takes a lot of my brain power to read those sorts of hefty books, for not a lot of reward. And because that book took me so long to read, the last book I read in February was Listen and Lion by Brandy Colbert. Once again, this book has been on my physical TBR for ages, so I was very, very happy to get it off my TBR. I am unfortunately a little bit disappointed by this book. It was never a book that I was like really super duper excited to read, but obviously I brought it for a reason. I did want to read it. It is a YA book that follows our main character Susie, who after spending a summer away at boarding school, she comes back home, spend time with her brother again. Her brother is a stepbrother and he suffers from bipolar disorder, but things start to go askew when she falls for the girl that her brother is dating. And it's all about her brother and hers relationship, as well as her parents' relationship, and just friends, school, and kind of navigating life now. She's back in a community that she spent a whole year apart from and trying to refit back in. I enjoyed it for what it was, but I think to have appreciated it more, I should have read it a long time ago. Being 25, reading YA now, it really has to be a niche YA that I haven't read before, and kind of falling for the same person as your brother, figuring things out was just very kind of stereotypical YA for me, and I didn't kind of really vibe with it. The thing that I did really enjoy about this book was the discussion on bipolar and the relationship that she had with her brother. I thought was really strong, and she always kind of felt protective over him because of this illness, and she keeps a massive secret for him away from everyone else, and that's kind of the consequences that she has to face during this book. It was a great story for representation because you have LGBTQ, the main character is Black and Jewish. She has a brother who has bipolar, so representation in this book is excellent, but personally the book just wasn't for me, and once again it's in my unhaul pile. So my physical TBR is getting less because I'm unhauling a lot of books from reading them, but also that's not so great because I spent money on those books and I really hoped I would have enjoyed them a little bit more. So those are all the books I read in February. I'm really hoping for more 4 and 5 stars in the month of March, but 2 4 stars and 1 5 star isn't too shabby out of the 5 books that I did read. Let me know what you read down in the comments down below. I would love to know. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a massive thumbs up and subscribe down below. And without further ado, I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys. I just realised I didn't hold up any of the books, but I only had 2 physical. Obviously they were in the unhaul pile, but here, these are the 2 physical books I read in the month of March, February. Ah!